Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the White House is getting a new ballroom. Meanwhile, Leavitt says former Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton approved efforts to undermine President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and his first term. Western countries like Canada, France, and the UK moved toward recognizing Palestine. Why now? We discuss with the Middle East Affairs analyst. Senators advance a bill to ban lawmakers and presidents from stock trading. The votes led to friction between President Trump and a GOP senator. President Trump sends a warning to a former Russian president, saying he's entering dangerous territory. The U.S. is also getting ready to put more pressure on Russia. An inquiry into Harvard's ties to Beijing. House lawmakers are asking the Ivy League school to cooperate with an investigation after whistleblowers revealed its relationship with the Chinese Communist Party elites. A political thriller inspired by events during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in China, the movie Unrestricted War is premiering on Capitol Hill today. We bring you a panel discussion from the event.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. A Senate committee has advanced a bill to ban stock trading by lawmakers, presidents, and vice presidents. President Trump supports the idea, he says, but is unhappy about the amendment process played out. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
This bill was introduced by Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican, and a Democrat, Gary Peters. Now, it would require congressional members and their spouses to gradually divest their holdings from their financial gains in the stock market, also banning them from trading stock moving forward. It also applies to presidents and vice presidents, though key elements of this bill do not take effect until the next term. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance would not be impacted by it. Here's Senator Hawley yesterday on the committee explaining why he feels such a bill is needed.
We have an interest in the work that we do. We have information that no other people get, no other members of the public have. This bill would finally redress that.
Now, Senator Josh Hawley was the only Republican on this panel to vote with Democrats to advance it out of committee, but Hawley notably also voted against an amendment put forth by Republican Senator Rick Scott that would have launched an investigation into Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, since she's been under scrutiny over allegations that her family has benefited financially from insider knowledge. Now, because of Hawley's vote against this amendment, President Trump took to Truth Social to criticize his vote against the amendment, saying he's playing right into the Democrats' hands. When the president was asked whether or not he supports a ban on congressional stock trading, he said he supports the concept, but emphasized that he thinks it's important for Pelosi to be investigated. As for why other Republicans on this panel oppose the bill, well, some of them say that it would disincentivize qualified workers from launching a bid for office. Listen.
Would have been great. I could have had somebody really expert in international taxation, that type of thing. I could not find anybody willing to do it. So this piece of legislation, really, it's legislative demagoguery.
Though this particular bill lacks Republican support to get it through the Republican-controlled Congress, there are several such related bills that have been in discussion for several years. The most recent one is Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who says she plans to force a vote on the House floor on one of such bills through a discharge petition, meaning that when lawmakers come back from their August recess, she plans to try to get 217 House lawmakers to sign on her petition to force a vote on this on the House floor. House leadership on both sides of the aisle say they support such an effort, though these discussions have been underway for quite some time in Congress with nothing actually coming to fruition. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
President Trump said he would give Mexico another 90 days to reach an agreement with the White House on tariffs. After speaking with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "The complexities of a deal with Mexico are somewhat different than other nations because of both the problems and assets of the border." He said, "We have agreed to extend for a 90-day period," adding Mexico will continue to pay a 25% fentanyl tariff, 25% tariff on cars, and a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and copper. Without a trade agreement, Mexico would have faced a 35% tariff starting August 1st. Trump said the two sides will continue talks over the next 90 days with the goal of signing a new deal. The Mexican president also said she had a good talk with Trump, saying in a post on X, quote, "We avoided the tariff increase announced for tomorrow and secured 90 days to build a long-term agreement through dialogue." The White House is closing a trade loophole that let foreign retailers avoid U.S. tariffs on low-cost goods. It's known as the de minimis exemption. Starting August 29th, shipments valued under $800 will face all relevant duties. The administration says the policy will stop the import of what it calls below-market products and curb the flow of dangerous drugs like fentanyl. The Trump administration earlier targeted packages from China and Hong Kong. The change will now affect all packages sent outside the international postal network. Meanwhile, packages sent by post will face new tariffs ranging from $80 to $200 per package, depending on origin. This comes after a surge in duty-free shipments. U.S. Customs now processes over 4 million daily de minimis shipments. The Justice Department argued today that President Trump has the power to impose sweeping tariffs under a law meant for national emergencies. The case was heard by a full panel of federal circuit judges. Several judges were concerned that no real emergency existed.
Yes, there may be other tariff statutes that may also apply in the context of non-emergencies, but in the context of an emergency, the president can invoke that authority, and he can invoke all of it, subject to the limits in the emergency authority.
At 583 in Yoshida, the court said, quote, "The declaration of a national emergency is not a talisman enabling the president to rewrite the tariff schedules." And because that would sound the death knell of the Constitution. So clearly, I understand Yoshida is a critical part of your case, but as others have said, you have to buy all of Yoshida. And it seems pretty clear to me that Yoshida is telling us that no, the president doesn't have the authority to rewrite the tariff schedules. And it seems like
the department attorney argued that a spike in trade deficit created the necessary emergency that required Trump to impose the tariffs. The states and businesses that have challenged the tariffs argued that the president doesn't have the authority to impose unlimited tariffs, if any at all. The panel didn't make a final decision, but it appears that the majority is skeptical about whether a president has the power to independently change the tariff schedule. Another country says it will recognize a Palestinian state. President Trump reacted to Canada's announcement, saying the stance will make it very hard for the U.S. to make a trade deal with them. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced yesterday that Canada is planning to recognize the state of Palestine at a meeting of the United Nations in September. The move follows France and Britain's pledge to do the same. However, the UK said they will only do it if Israel does not meet certain conditions, which include agreeing to a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel and the U.S. both rejected Carney's statements. Canada and the U.S. are working on a negotiation deal of trade by tomorrow. Canada could face 35% tariffs if no deal is reached. Carney said yesterday that tariff negotiations have been constructive, but the talks may not finish by the deadline. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Israel today, meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Witkoff is working to make progress on Gaza ceasefire talks. Shortly after the envoy's arrival, President Trump posted on Truth Social, "The fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages." Indirect ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas terrorists in Qatar ended in a deadlock last week. Israel says it wants Hamas to release all remaining hostages. Hamas, meanwhile, wants Israeli troops to withdraw completely from Gaza, among other demands. Israel's public broadcaster reports that Witkoff is also scheduled to visit an aid distribution site in Gaza during his trip. And joining us now to discuss the tensions surrounding the moves by some nations to plan to recognize Palestinian statehood is David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former Senior Advisor to U.S. Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and Strategic Affairs. David, good afternoon. Good to see you again. So the Canadian Prime Minister is saying that Canada plans to recognize Palestinian statehood, but it's under the condition that there will be reforms, right, by the Palestinian Authority. Do you see these conditions being met at some point? Your overall thoughts on it?
You know, already in 2003, we had the Rose Garden speech by President Bush, where he said that there has to be a leadership untainted by both terrorism and corruption. And we have tried reforming the Palestinian Authority for now 2 decades, and it hasn't worked every single time because the essence of the government there is essentially a corrupt government, a kleptocracy. It's the only reason why it continues to survive in some ways. So I can't see Canada may suspend or announce that its conditions are met, but the reality is they won't be.
Okay, definition-wise, can you walk us through this? What does it mean actually for a country to recognize Palestine? What would its borders be, and the main governing body is recognizing Palestine a symbolic gesture? Because it seems like, at least, different countries have different approaches to recognition.
Well, there are some countries who would recognize Palestine to replace Israel, for example, Iran and others. There are other countries that would think or imagine that it would be the 67 borders, which on that map that you have up are those grayish green areas rather than the more yellowish. But in the United States and Israel have maintained that there's no legal requirement for Israel to give up any of it or all of it. And as a result, there's no real border that is recognized here. Apart from that, there's no real legal foundation to recognize the Palestinian state. There's no prior Palestinian state that ever existed. So there's no authority or group of people who represent the Palestinians with any legal basis for declaring a state, because they've never had sovereignty. So therefore, they're not what's under international law called a high contracting authority. The only ones who've ever had sovereignty in that area ever in history that still are around are the Israelis, the Jewish people. So there's no real legal foundation to it either, apart from the fact that it also violates various agreements from the past. So I think it's all a dead letter, but it's a lot of virtue signaling at the expense of the hostages.
Right. And Canada is just the latest country, right? There's France as well, the UK as well, moving toward recognition. But why now? Why are they moving toward recognizing Palestine now?
Well, I think they're moving toward it now as part of it's a payoff. I mean, unfortunately, you saw that the French leader went to Qatar. Qatar is willing to give infused French economy with $11 billion, which Macron needs a lot. Plus, there's a great deal of fear over the domestic Muslim populations in countries like France or Britain. And so forth. So there's this real feeling that as the Gaza war continues, there's a loss of control of circumstances, plus heavy pressure from the Qataris who have money.
Hey, David, I can still see you, but your picture is rotated 180 degrees. All right, so we'll just move on. Okay. Okay, David. So while we're fixing this, you're talking about the recognition of Palestine and its borders, and you're saying it doesn't really, have concrete borders, and as well, there's really no existing authority there that if you're recognizing the state, that there will be an actual effective government by the end of that recognition process. So those are also very good points, David, if you can still hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so my next question to you is, there's a lot of arguments being thrown out here in support of recognizing Palestine. What do you say to whether recognizing it as a state will actually provide tangible help to the people in Gaza?
Well, it probably won't. The most, in terms of actual help of both welfare, food, economic growth, freedom, and so forth, the real heyday of the greatest freedom was under full Israeli occupation. Even though they didn't have sovereignty, they had a lot of rights under Israeli military authority, and they certainly had tremendous economic growth. Under the Palestinian Authority and under Hamas, you've seen these populations suffer horribly. They're awful tyrannies. The one in Gaza was a jihadist-run place. You saw Christianity catastrophically collapse in the Palestinian-run areas over the last 20, 30 years. So really in terms of outright welfare, but humans are more than just welfare. It's also a question of identity and dignity and so forth. And that's where the Israelis can't quite provide what maybe an autonomous government would. But at this point, it's very difficult to see what can be done other than full Israeli occupation, because the various governments that have ruled over the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, they simply used the population. First of all, educated them into martyrdom and death. They became a death cult with the government. And the second thing is they used that to launch attacks on Israel and create bloodshed. So while from 1967 to 1995, when you had before any peace agreements and there was full Israeli occupation, there really wasn't all that much conflict that resulted in dead Palestinians and Israelis. But since then, you've had wave after wave of violence that's claimed thousands of Palestinian lives. So arguably right now, in terms of just human rights and welfare for Palestinians, one of the best things that can happen is just we stop, we pause, we pull back, the Israelis reassert some control, and then we sort of start over and figure out how we're going to deal with the population, because at the end of the day, they do need some form of dignity and identity. And second of all, the Israelis really don't want to absorb the population, because you're talking millions of people, and Israel's only a country of 10 million, and they don't want to become a minority in their own country.
So you don't think Palestinian recognition will help negotiation efforts or ceasefire talks in Gaza?
No, I think it'll do the opposite, because what happens is Hamas now is winning without having to negotiate. It is now able to tell the Palestinian people, we have gotten what nobody else has gotten. We have gotten recognition. And therefore, what we did on October 7th worked, and our holding of the hostages worked, and the continued attacks and warfare with Israel have worked. And they leverage that for their political power. So I think it actually incentivizes Hamas to hold on to the hostages forever and not reach a ceasefire. So I think that's why I said it's virtue signaling at the expense of the hostages.
Do you think the U.S. feels at all pressured with more countries moving toward, or planning at least, recognizing Palestine?
Well, I think the administration sees it the way the Israelis see it. They're quite nervous that President Trump put a lot of his credibility on the line to help Israel and help Palestinians who oppose Hamas to come to a ceasefire, as well as release the hostages. He keeps having the hostages in the White House and so forth. And here Hamas doesn't even want a deal, and the talks are now, ever since they were moving forward, and we were awfully close 2 weeks ago. But since this wave of recognition of the Palestinians began, the talks have completely collapsed. And I think the United States is as frustrated about that as Israel is at this point.
Okay, just to wrap up here, can I get your comments on a UN conference on Tuesday issuing a declaration calling for Hamas to disarm? Talk to us about what does it mean and how significant is it?
The irony is that as Europe is moving toward recognizing a Palestinian state, the Arab League, in unity, decided to demand the surrender of Hamas. So you have the Arab League actually taking, in some ways, a more pro-Israeli line and helpful line than the European Union was taking, or nations within the European Union are taking. So I think this conference on Tuesday, while sponsored by Saudi Arabia, the Saudis have focused more on Hamas surrendering power and, yes, providing a horizon politically for a state. But the Europeans have focused exclusively on the state part of it. And that's where the real meltdown begins. At the end of the day, though, a two-state solution right now is a dead letter. The Israelis, after October 7th, see that as an existential, mortal threat to their existence, and they're just not going to give in.
Well, okay, David, it's good to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the White House is building a new ballroom. She stressed that its construction is necessary during a press briefing this afternoon. Listen.
The White House is one of the most beautiful and historic buildings in the world. Yet the White House is currently unable to host major functions, honoring world leaders in other countries without having to install a large and unsightly tent approximately 100 yards away from the main building's entrance. The White House State Ballroom will be a much-needed and exquisite addition of approximately 90,000 total square feet of innately designed and carefully crafted space with a seated capacity of 650 people, which is a significant increase from the 200-person seated capacity in the East Room of the White House.
Meanwhile, Leavitt answered questions about the so-called Russiagate scandal. Leavitt said Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton gave the green light to undermine Trump's 2016 campaign and ultimately his first term.
This should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
Coming up, a political thriller inspired by events during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in China. The movie Unrestricted War is premiering on Capitol Hill today. We're going to bring you a panel discussion from the event. An inquiry into Harvard's ties to Beijing. House lawmakers are asking the Ivy League school to cooperate with an investigation after whistleblowers revealed its relationship with the Chinese Communist Party elites. That and more when we come back.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
House lawmakers are probing Harvard's ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This is after whistleblowers revealed that the Ivy League school has cultivated ties with elite CCP members and maintained close formal relationships directly with the CCP entities. Now, chairman of the Select Committee on the CCP and Congresswoman Elise Stefanik are demanding Harvard to disclose all documents, agreements, and financial records that relate to their dealings with the Chinese regime over the past 10 years. In a letter to Harvard's president, the lawmakers expressed concerns about the school cultivating relations with, quote, one of the most powerful bodies within the Communist Party. Also spotlighted is the Harvard Kennedy School's formal partnership with the Chinese Executive Leadership Academy, Pudong. The partnership allows for the CCP elite, that is, senior Communist Party leadership positions, participate in training at Harvard in the United States. Harvard has until next week to hand over documents regarding such ties to the Chinese Communist Party. A political thriller inspired by events during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in China. The movie The Unrestricted War is premiering on Capitol Hill today. NTD's Steve Lance is hosting a panel discussion, bringing together guests to dive into the film.
So, to make this film, I just feel it's very important for us to, after 4 or 5 years, to reflect on what happened, especially in the beginning of this pandemic. So in the story, our antagonist, we showed the antagonists use their power to censor information and manipulate people, basically weaponize the whole crisis for their political purpose. So, and all that actually perfectly align with the concepts of the unrestricted warfare. So, yeah, so I feel like we need to make a film to shine a light on this issue.
The storyline follows a top-tier Canadian virologist in China who suddenly finds himself at the center of a rapidly escalating outbreak. It exposes how the Chinese Communist regime concealed critical information during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic and silenced whistleblowers, triggering a global crisis. Frank Gaffney, who is president of the Institute for the American Future and vice chairman of the Committee on the Present Danger China, gives a warning about the danger of the CCP's unrestricted warfare.
I thank you for making this film, for doing it so beautifully, and for doing it at this moment when, I was going to say, for God's sake, but for our sake, we must awaken to the reality that these people are intent on our destruction. Again, the Chinese Communist Party. And they are well advanced in accomplishing it through unrestricted warfare. And preparing, by the way, now, with our help, and just last thought, Jan and I have talked about endlessly, with our money, thanks to Wall Street funneling it to the Chinese Communist Party, even its People's Liberation Army companies.
Casey Fleming is the CEO of Black Ops Partners. He dives into the concept behind the CCP's unrestricted warfare strategy and warns Americans that every one of us is already in this war.
It's important to first understand what unrestricted war really means. What does it mean? Okay, it means weakening the enemy by all means necessary, everything short of conventional war. What that means, so conventional war means our military, our government. So if they're weakening all sectors of society and weakening a people and a country by all means necessary, that means that the American people, man, woman, child, Canadian people, Australian, UK, keep going, they are on the front lines of this war, okay? And so this war must be understood that the normal people are on their front lines.
And you can watch this movie on the streaming platform Ganjing World Plus, exclusively beginning August 8th. Next, the New York City police officer killed by a gunman at a Manhattan office tower will be laid to rest today. The 36-year-old was among the 4 people gunned down on Monday. Didarul Islam's funeral will take place in the Bronx. There will be separate viewings for men, women, and close friends and family, followed by a prayer service. He will then be buried at a cemetery in New Jersey. Islam was the gunman's first victim when he walked into the lobby of the Park Avenue office tower with an AR-15 style rifle. Islam was in uniform at the time, working a department-approved private security detail. He leaves behind 2 sons and a wife who is expecting their 3rd child. Coming up, the UK is following the US Congress in banning Chinese state newspaper from circulating in the British Parliament. We discussed the latest move with Benedict Rogers, co-founder of Hong Kong Watch. New online safety laws in Britain are impacting free speech and even American tech businesses. The rule aims at protecting kids from harm online, but critics say the new rules reaches far further. That and more after the break.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight.
Skylar, come here.
Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person. And I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Next, to discuss transnational repression in the UK, we're bringing in Benedict Rogers, co-founder of Hong Kong Watch. He also co-founded and serves as deputy chair of the Conservative Party Human Rights Commission in the UK. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with transnational repression, a term we've been hearing a lot lately. A parliamentary committee published a report on Wednesday warning that transnational repression by foreign governments have been growing unchecked in the UK. What were the key findings in this report to start off?
Well, let me first of all say this is a report that I think is much needed, long overdue, and very welcome. The key recommendations really are, first of all, that the British government needs to have an actual definition of transnational repression. That's not easy because it's quite a wide-ranging concept, but nevertheless, there is currently no official definition, and the key recommendation is that there should be one. Other recommendations are that the UK police should be much better trained and prepared and should be proactive at reaching out to communities that are affected, and that there should be much better coordination across government in terms of dealing with the perpetrators of transnational repression. So it recommends, instead of having multiple government offices dealing with this issue, which is the case at the moment, that there should be some kind of central unit that is empowered to coordinate policy across government.
So besides the report, what are some examples that you've seen of transnational repression that's actually happening in UK?
Well, the most egregious and recent example is, of course, the issuing of $1 million Hong Kong dollar bounties by the Hong Kong authorities against a number of exiled Hong Kong activists who live in the UK and some who live in the US and Australia and other parts of the world. And that has led also to the issuing of letters against a number of Hong Kong activists in the UK to their neighbourhoods in London, letters that have been sent to their neighbours, offering their neighbours a reward for providing information on the whereabouts, the activities of some of these activists. And in a much smaller way, I mean, I don't face the kind of severe threats that exiled diaspora activists face, but I've also had similar letters in the past, as has my mother. And that's just Hong Kong. Of course, there are other cases relating to Russia, to Iran, and many other countries.
I mean, this is such a serious concern. How can we prevent this? What can be done?
Well, I think, first of all, the government needs to really step up its recognition of this as a problem, as a phenomenon. And I give the government some credit, as the report does, for steps that have been taken in recent years, but there's a lot more that can be done. For example, just today there was news that Carmen Lau, a prominent Hong Kong activist, a former district councillor, was advised by the police in the UK to essentially self-censor, to step away from participating in public gatherings. That's totally the wrong approach. Carmen Lau and other Hong Kong activists, and indeed people from other countries, have come to the UK because we're a country of freedom of expression, and they've fled their own countries where that freedom is denied. So what we should be doing is protecting them as they exercise their freedom, not advising them to self-censor.
Okay, I want to bring up a specific part of its transnational repression. So the Chinese Communist Party is targeting the mind-body cultivation practice of Falun Gong. Through various means, it also attempts to sabotage the performing arts company, Shenyun, which was founded by Falun Gong practitioners. And earlier this year, British MP Jim Shannon called this deeply troubling and an attack on religious freedom. I'm just wondering here, is there any limits to this transnational repression? Is there a bottom line, or there's no such a thing?
Well, there must be a bottom line. And I mean, the example of the threats to Shenyun is one I'm very aware of. I've known for several years the number of theatres around the UK that have reportedly come under pressure not to allow Shenyun to be performed. I mean, that's a violation of our basic freedoms. Our theatres should decide what performances are shown, not on the basis of what the Chinese Communist Party says, but on the basis of the appropriateness of the performance and the commercial viability of the performance and all those factors. So yes, there is a bottom line, and the bottom line should be that we should stand up for our basic freedoms that we have for a long time taken for granted, and that are now coming under increasing threat from external powers. And the reality is, although the primary victims of transnational repression are diaspora communities, from whether it's Hong Kongers, Tibetans, Uyghurs, or indeed Russians, Iranians, and others, nevertheless, it impacts everybody's freedom. And it's something that we should take a lot more seriously.
So your organization, Hong Kong Watch, is doing terrific work in this aspect, in various aspects. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that. Your organization, what is it doing to counter this campaign?
Well, I co-founded Hong Kong Watch in 2017, and over the years we've advocated in the British Parliament and indeed in other arenas in the United States, Canada, the European Union, and elsewhere, both for Hong Kongers in Hong Kong and the very rapidly and seriously deteriorating human rights situation there, but also for the rights of Hong Kongers, firstly to come to the UK and other countries because they need a place of safety, and then to advocate for their rights once they're here. And so we have, for example, we made a submission to the parliamentary inquiry on transnational repression. I also made a personal submission as well, based on my own personal experiences of receiving threatening letters, and my neighbors and my mother and others close to me receiving similar letters. And we'll go on highlighting this issue because it's a very serious concern, both for the Hong Kongers that we seek to serve, but also for our own society and our own values and freedoms.
Well, Ben, we're out of time today, but thank you for your time today to talk to us. It was a very important conversation.
Thank you very much.
New British online safety rules are impacting free speech on the island nation and even American tech businesses. The rules aim at protecting children, but their application reaches further, even limiting discussion about illegal immigration. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us from London.
The UK's Online Safety Act aims to protect children from pornography and violent content online. It requires online companies to stop underage users from accessing harmful content. But critics of the Act say it is seriously impacting free speech in Britain and could potentially harm and undermine its relationship with the United States. New online safety protections for children came into force in Britain on July 25th. On that day, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said,
I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection.
Protecting children is what every good parent wants. But many say the Online Safety Act goes too far. Users of sites like Reddit, X, Spotify or Facebook must verify their age to see potentially sensitive content. They must provide ID such as a driving license or a credit card. Economist Maxwell Marlowe said the way this is being rolled out is malicious.
So let's say you're criticising illegal immigration or you're looking at the rape gangs throughout the UK. That could be flagged as harmful to children.
Two issues many British citizens want fixed after years of government failures. This content shared online could be blocked for any non-age verified users in the UK. Victim of a rape gang and campaigner Sammy Woodhouse shared the heartbreaking written testimony of another rape gang survivor on X. But many users could only see this, restricted. Similarly, NTD's British Thought Leaders host Lee Hall published an interview on X about illegal immigration in the United States. But many British users cannot see it, not even Lee Hall himself. And it's not just the more sensitive but certainly legal topics like those either. Earlier I was reading a menswear thread, fashion. It was about the cultural history of which leather shoes to style with different suits. Now, I can't really imagine why, but even something as simple as that was censored and required age verification to view. This directly impacts the ability of people to engage in free and legal speech. And the Online Safety Act directly impacts American business.
The first is that this is going to directly affect usership of American companies. The second area is the fines, up to 10% of global revenue. Imagine that for Meta. That could be ginormous. That's huge amounts of money leaving the US to go to the UK over fines for content that would be perfectly legal in the US. And the third thing is actually interrupts the rights of Americans. It violates their First Amendment rights to communicate freely.
US Representative Jim Jordan told GB News that he doesn't want harmful material getting to kids, but said there is a big difference between that and political speech such as criticism of the government, and added he is very concerned about the Online Safety Act impacting free speech. Marlowe said it could even impact the US-UK trade deal.
Totally. They'll also may blow up the free trade agreement because this is such a huge, huge thing for America. Again, as you pointed out, these social media companies, these internet providers, they are based in the US. They're huge constituents of the American government and the American economy. To have the British government come in and trample all over that, they're not going to take it. And this administration in particular is not going to allow that to happen.
Given the impact, US lawyers are already preparing to defend US tech companies, big ones as well as little ones. Preston Byrne, managing director at Byrne & Storm PC, said he is in direct contact with the White House and that the First Amendment is not for sale. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
The U.S. is getting ready to increase pressure on Russia as Moscow is facing an upcoming deadline set by President Trump. But Russia continues attacks on Ukraine. At least 8 civilians are reported dead today, including a 6-year-old boy. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the war update.
President Trump has made clear this must be done by August 8th.
U.S. diplomat John Kelly tells the United Nations on Thursday that the U.S. is prepared to implement additional measures to secure peace in Ukraine. That's if no peace deal is reached by the end of next week. President Trump recently reduced a 50-day deadline down to 10 days, set to end next Friday. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says Republican lawmakers are ready to advance a bill sanctioning Russia if no deal is reached by then. Thune told the New York Post that Trump is somebody who's animated largely by trying to get to a peaceful solution. Thune says he knows the president might take executive action to impose further sanctions, but adds that lawmakers are ready to support Trump if needed. Also on Thursday, President Trump responds to a threat by former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. On Monday, Medvedev commented on Trump's 10-day deadline, saying each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Trump responded on Thursday, saying, "Tell Medvedev to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory." Meanwhile, in Ukraine's capital city, at least 8 civilians are reported dead in Kiev after a Russian attack. Among the victims is a 6-year-old boy. Almost 90 others are injured. Ukraine's military reports 5 direct missile hits and over 30 drone hits in various locations. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
Up next, Brown University strikes a deal with the Trump administration, restoring hundreds of millions in federal funding. Find out the changes the Ivy League school has agreed to after the break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Brown University has reached a major settlement with the Trump administration that restores hundreds of millions in federal research funding. The Ivy League school has agreed to a number of policy changes related to campus practices, hiring, and admissions. Here's the story.
Brown University has agreed to pay $50 million to workforce development organizations in Rhode Island as part of a 3-year agreement with the Trump administration. In return, the federal government will restore research grants and drop investigations into alleged discrimination at the Ivy League school. Education Secretary Linda McMahon laid out some of the details of the agreement on Fox News Wednesday.
Well, in the settlement, it does agree to protect students on campus and to make sure they are still cracking down on anti-Semitism. They also have agreed, to recognize women as women and men as men, and not to allow men in women's sports, and women can have private dressing facilities, etc. And they've also agreed to get rid of the DEI and their hiring practices to make sure that it's based on merit.
The settlement ends 3 federal investigations into Brown's admissions practices and anti-Semitism complaints. The school admitted no wrongdoing, but said they prioritize academic freedom in discussions with the administration. University President Christina Paxson defended the agreement, saying it preserves the school's values and academic independence. She emphasized that the federal government would not have the power to dictate curriculum or academic content. To address allegations of anti-Semitism, Brown agreed to renew partnerships with Israeli academics, encourage Jewish students to apply, and hire an external organization to monitor the campus climate for Jewish students. Meanwhile, Duke University is also facing federal action. The Trump administration says it's frozen over $100 million in research funding over alleged racial discrimination. Linda McMahon and HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sent a letter to Duke University's medical school earlier this week. They allege racial preferences and discriminatory activity in recruitment, student admissions, scholarships and financial aid, mentoring and enrichment programs, hiring, promotion, and more. The administration also alleged the school's law journal used race as a factor when selecting supplicants, a practice they say violates both the Constitution and Supreme Court precedent. The administration is requiring that Duke create a Merit and Civil Rights Committee to ensure future federal funds are used for research, not race-based initiatives. Duke has 20 days to respond to the federal government's notice.
NTD reached out to Duke University regarding the allegations by the Trump administration and the funding freeze. We did not hear back before broadcast time. The Trump administration is proposing changes to H-1B visas. That's as the administration says tech companies are taking advantage of the visa program to hire cheap foreign labor. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
The Trump administration is considering changes to the H-1B visa system, which allows foreign workers to be employed. Now, this comes amid concerns that U.S. tech companies are laying off American workers to hire foreigners to do the same job, but pay them much less. Microsoft, for instance, laid off around 9,000 workers in its latest round of layoffs this year. And government data shows that the company received nearly 9,500 H-1B visas just last year. Vice President J.D. Vance raised this issue recently on the All In podcast. Take a look.
You see some big tech companies where they'll lay off 9,000 workers and then they'll apply for a bunch of overseas visas. And it maybe was Microsoft.
It was Microsoft.
That fired, I think, 9,000 people. And then I was like, wait a second.
Record profits, record market cap. And it's not just Microsoft. Many other leading tech companies have also received thousands of H-1B approvals just last year, like Google, Amazon, Meta, and Tesla. Now, those concerns were echoed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Monday.
For example, you have some of these tech companies, they're laying off all these American workers, and then they're importing H-1B visa people to work for cheaper. I think that's a total scam. And then they do chain migration from the H-1B. So the H-1B is bringing in other folks. And it's almost like indentured servitude because you can't leave the company.
And earlier this month, it was found that Microsoft has been employing engineers in China to provide tech support to the U.S. military. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth confirmed that the DoD has been using China-based workers for its cloud services. He called it a potential vulnerability for the U.S. military's cybersecurity.
It turns out that some tech companies have been using cheap Chinese labor to assist with DoD cloud services. This is obviously unacceptable, especially in today's digital threat environment.
When light of this information came out, Microsoft, which is a major contractor of the U.S. government, said that it will stop employing Chinese-based engineers for U.S. military projects. That same day, Hegseth came out on July 18th saying that he would launch a review to ensure that this isn't happening in other parts of the Defense Department. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Microsoft also addressed concerns over its use of H-1B visas. In a statement to the trade outlet CFO Dive, a spokesperson said there is no link between H-1B applications and the company's recent job cuts. The spokesperson added that some of the affected employees were on H-1B visas. The statement also said that 78% of Microsoft's H-1B petitions in the past year were for extending current employees' visas, not new hires coming to the U.S. Coming up next, President Trump is giving Mexico another 90 days to reach a trade deal. How about China? We have an analysis on the president's strategy.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find